Hello everyone and welcome to today's video. I'm Toby and there are only 3 days left of PEL, not only phase 3 but the entire season. It's going to be down to the last couple of games, kind of in both ends of the table, because in the top, we have the fight of teams trying to make it to PGC obviously and trying to win the league. And on the bottom, we have the teams trying to avoid having to play the relegation against the contenders teams who want to make it into the Pro League for the next phase. So a lot of things going on in each end, and then the guys in the middle, they're just kind of, I think at this point, when you sit in, I don't know, like 8th down to maybe 10th, 11th place, you're more like, you know what, if we can just stay here until the next season, I think we'll be just fine. Because they're realizing now, obviously, we can't win. At the same time, if we just play decently enough, we probably won't get relegated either. So stay in the middle and then hope that you can stay so that you can play well next season. But in any case, let's get right into the first match of the day. As always, 5 games, 2 times Miramar, 1 time Sanhok, 2 times Erangel. For those of you guys who didn't already know, so it's gonna be 5 games here. Then it's gonna be 5 games tomorrow. And then it's going to be 6 games on the final day. And that is going to not be... People have been telling me, oh, Toby, why do they play 2 games Sanhok? It's horrible to have a final day with 2 games Sanhok. But it's not. It's going to be 2 Miramar, 1 Sanhok, and then 3 Erangel. So they're swapping out a potential Sanhok game for an extra Erangel game. So I like the fact that we finish off with 3 days of Erangel. I think that's kind of nice. But let's start. Nonetheless, if not enough chitter-chatter, let's see the plane. We'll slow it down a little. It's a northern one, pretty straightforward. Gamer Legion, they're practically jumping out of the map. Same thing for Best of Luck, way up there behind the behind the PUBG logo. We've seen them do this before. I mean, in order for Gamer Legion to go down towards Chumacera, and not necessarily Chumacera itself, but like this whole area, they'd have to literally fly over the face of Liquid. And that itself might not be that scary, but they will land, and they will still be way up in the sky. And you don't want to let them stand still and pew 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 towards you up in the air. So it makes perfect sense that they go somewhere else, far up northwest, and we'll see what they can do from there. N47 down on the east coast, Desperados, Impala, and the circle goes to the islands. I don't think it does. I would, despite me not having seen this entire game, I'm pretty sure that I would have recognized on Twitter that the game went to the island, which I think it doesn't. But in any case, of course, at this point for the players, it's a factor that they have to kind of keep in mind that, oh my lord, it actually could go out there. So we have a rotation path that for most teams is going to be a little tricky, mainly because this whole downhill slant isn't too easy to traverse through. And if you go underneath anywhere, let's say you come down here and you want to push under, you have like a crater and a crater. And these 2 spots alone kind of work as a little speed bump. So either you have to zigzag your way through, or you have to go, stop, go, stop. It's like it kind of becomes natural spots to stop and look further forward on. But at the same time, it really slows your rotation. So if you're Liquid and you want to be fast to the circle, you can't really just send it over because you have to go up the hill, look over the top, then move further forward. You can't really just do those rotations when the circles go west to east or east to west, for that sake. And also for Reciprocity, they're going to be one of those teams that could stick around. I mean, obviously, there's a lot better spots in this circle to sit on where they are, than where they are. But you might be in a situation where you can expect X amount of teams to push through where you're going from, right? Because you only have so many roads. Lost Road, I always draw it the other way around. Lost Road, probably not going to be taken. Through here, probably not going to be taken. So you have either this road, you would drive through, over the north, into the circle. We'll point some arrows so you guys know what I'm talking about. Around the side, that's probably going to be well used. And then either potentially through here, or over the top, like up into this somewhere. So this whole push is going to be denied. Not denied, but I just don't think it's going to happen. And then on the southern side too. And if few teams, I mean, it only take, if N's stuck around here, set up a block. And if a team's setting up a block here, then all of a sudden you can see that you're very, very limited in what paths you have available in order to rotate in towards the circle. So let's see if that happens. So if these teams that are already kind of in, we're talking DA, ENS, Reciprocity, if they prioritize getting themselves to a better spot in the circle rather than try and do damage to the teams making their way in. Because every time they miss a vehicle passing through, that's obviously going to be one more player in a better spot than you. So you kind of have to value, do we want to try and fight off these guys with a chance of them passing us? Or do we want to get the spot ourselves, but then not get that kill? And as you can see, all the teams in the middle are indeed valuing position over trying to get edge kills. Mainly because in the middle, we've drawn it up before, but I'll gladly do it again. In this whole area, we got a huge field, and especially early on in the game when we have all these high ground positions in play, you can pretty much only play the compounds. You cannot play the fields. If you do, it's again one of those unplayable terrain discussions where, yes, you can be there, but if you commit to a shack or one of these hay bale stacks, your vehicles will be destroyed, you won't be able to rotate, and you're going to be sitting still waiting for circles to continuously go to you, and as soon as it goes away, you're most likely gonna die. And teams don't want to force themselves into those situations early on. Liquid gonna rotate over the side of La Bandida, look down towards Reciprocity. They get themselves an early knock, and then, as Liquid do sometimes early game, they just full speed send it down towards the compound. So they want to see if they can get themselves a compound stolen away from Reciprocity. And well, I'll tell you a secret. They're doing pretty well at it right now. That's another thing that, I mean, we just don't see teams do this very often, especially not in the Western scene, where they just fully commit to a breach in Circle 1. But Liquid obviously knows, A, which compounds they like to play, and B, I honestly think that, initially, I don't think Liquid, when they pulled up on this, thought there was going to be an entire team in this compound. I don't think they would have committed as hard to getting it, had it not been because they thought there were fewer. But they commit to it. They get one knock. I think Ents gets a knock on one of the other guys, so they know the 2 players are down early, and then they get them down to just being shiv alive pretty quickly. They end up taking that, and you can see already now Desperado's 3-way split. I kind of like it, but at the same time it's scary looking at teams like Liquid who do make these pull-up plays, to use their own words for it. It can be dangerous, because if Calvin's compound get pushed up on by TSM, for example, then can he get away? His entire drive is going to be through an open field where multiple other teams could potentially shoot at him as well, including the guys that just breached the compound. So dangerous splits, but of course it's going to be worth it if nothing goes wrong. That's the risk versus reward type I guess balance you have to kind of find for yourself and your team. Crow Crowd rotating far south, want to be close to the boats if they have to go out there, which they then don't. Unfortunately not. No island ending for us today. Has there been an island ending this phase? Yes, there was one, right? With Vard almost out of bullets on the northern island. Was that this phase or phase 2? Was that phase 2? It was last phase. Yeah, okay. Okay, so it was... yeah, Thursia would know. Like, we have not had one of those games. By the way, for those of you guys who don't know who Thursia is the... I guess you can say coach and manager, or it's mainly just manager. I think it's a little bit of both. But he's the main man behind N47. So if you watch N47 and you like them, then he is part of their success. So, great day yesterday, Thursia. Congratulations. Thursia is a bold guy. He's the random guy that comes in and gives high fives to the players before the game starts. And we are like, wait, where did he come from? In any case, this circle is, I mean, there isn't really too much to it. It's just funny how it's such a big contrast. If we draw up, wait, we can actually draw it up better. We have this road, and then we have a cutoff here. So we have, actually, you know what? We could do this too. We kind of can't, but we kind of can. Okay, we'll do that. So we have one area, we're going to call it A up here. Then we have B, and then we have C. A, compound heavy, and I wanted to draw an extra line just because I think La Bandida kind of goes against the point that I'm trying to make now, but if for the most part, it'll make sense. So A, open area, you're relying on compounds, especially early game, and you need to really lock down terrain and be really good at scouting further forward. Am I sponsored by other? No, I just get to use it because I helped them develop it, like back in the early stage, I guess you can say. And there isn't really anything else I could use if I wanted to do these analysis things right now. B, you are in the open again, but you have more cover because now we have the grass and everything, like more dips and divots you can hide in. And C, Los Leones, city ending. You all know what I mean. I don't have to go in depth with talking about Los Leones. Big city, city ending. So very, very different areas that you as an income leader, because right now if we remove this and we look at the cutoff, right, kind of throw it through the middle here, kind of, is that the middle? Kind of the middle. Let's say here 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 and the team down here, so that's 13 out of 60 players. 13 out of 60 players on the southern half. The entire other bunch up here. And obviously no one is going to value going into Los Leones because you're not going to. And this area down here as well seems like I don't think we should go down here, because what if it ends up in this area, right? Where we're talking about all those compounds where we need one of them. So all the teams will be trying to value getting a compound up here, and then we have like a half of the circle that's just not going to be used for anything. You can kind of see it now. Nobody wants to go into Los Leones itself. Base, they're using the hillside to scout further forward. They'll wrap around, wrap on the edge, and try and play outside of Los, and then use the edge of the city as a kind of shortcut to make it to the other side. But nobody wants to play down on the southern side, except for, I guess you can say, Crow Crop. But I don't actually think they want to play down here. They're just hoping the circle goes in this direction. Game Allegiant pushing in late behind G2. Circle shifts once more, and we still have Los Leones in play. Now a big factor in this circle. If you're sitting on the northern side, which 1, 2, 3, 4 and a half teams are, all of a sudden, if you want to make a rotation to the southern side, because you can't push through this whole mountain thing, you have to wrap all the way around, and that forces you into the city that you were trying to avoid to begin with. The alternative is to go around the eastern side. Well, that forces you into the field you were trying to avoid to begin with. And then you have to go all the way south, but how do you get there? Because this compound is literally blocking off all rotation paths this way, and you have Impala there as well alongside these two. So it's so difficult at this point for a team that is sitting on the northern side to try and get something on the south where we know there was more room to play with. We know there was more room on the southern side, but because these teams have reached a point now where they're kind of locked down up there, the northern side of the circle just becomes a cluster, like a huge cluster of teams trying to somehow fight their way down. You can see 7, they want to wrap all the way around, but they're going to be forced into loss. G2 kind of doing the same thing, but they will be able to play the hillside. Ratio Edge, they're trying to do the same thing. TSM, they want to wrap around the side, and all these teams are really starting to take casualties because of it. G2 only made it because they were kind of already down here, so it wasn't the longest rotation for them. And for 7, them rotating in here, it's not really going to make the situation a lot better, because they'll still be out on the edge. But honestly, a pretty decent rotation from them, recognizing that Na'Vi was where they were and then rotating around. Circle, though, back to where we were before. And what was once 3 compounds available, and you can do whatever you want in the open, now it's Ents. Kind of Desperados as well, but it's really like all the eyes are already on Ents right now. And this compound. Either A, you crash it, because as long as all these hillside, like as long as all of this is in, you can't. Let me draw it up differently. As long as all of this is inside the circle, and all the white stuff here, as long as all of this is inside the circle, which it is in the next one, you cannot play anything here. And yes, you can prone on the hay bales. I'm not saying you can't. I'm just saying in terms of playing and actually trying to win, the only place you can play within this entire area is that compound. Because all these spots will see you, they'll be too far away for the grass to, the grass to render. So you proning in the field will just be you proning on a pancake, and you'll be super easy to spot, right? So look at how, like, if all of the yellow or all of the terrain within the red circle-ish shape we've made, it's not a circle because it's just, but if everything within the red, except for the compound, is unplayable, what the fuck do you do when we have so many teams now forced on the edge side, or the left side? Because all the teams that we saw up north before, Some of them tried to wrap around. They got punished. Some of them tried to go the other way. One made it through. The rest of them were forced to kind of just slow push down through La Bandida, and now they have to go into this. There's literally nowhere you can go in this circle. And I think if we look at the player count, right now we have 55 people alive. Let's keep an eye on that and see where it goes after this one pulls through. DA, I'm surprised by the fact that this is an interesting play in different ways. So they want DA split 2-2. And yesterday we really complimented DA for some of the playstyles that they did. And I think the idea of what they do here is really good as well. I just don't see them being able to execute it that well. So there are three things you can do when this circle pops as DA. Option 1, have Mert and Sixmo go over to the teammates and hold off anything coming this way. Option 2, have Mithralius, a beautiful death, go over to the teammates, hold here, anything that comes this way. Option 3, go into the middle somehow and try to play the spot. And the only reason that they can go here, like the only reason this area is playable for this team, because we said nothing was playable in here, is because they have teammates over here. Because if there would have been 4 guys here and an opponent team was here, pew, 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 they would all be dead. I mean, there would be no way you could do anything from there. But because they're split 2-2, this push actually kind of makes sense. Does that make sense? And also what they do, we talked about DA yesterday, actually for a while. We discussed DA and how they're not a very good fighting, like close quarter fighting team. So what they do by moving one step further into the circle is say, we don't want to take those edge fights. We know that there are teams in this lobby that are better at up close fragging than we are. And also, whichever team is sitting up here, of course, we know that it's FaZe. They might not know that. Whichever team is sitting up here, they're kind of staring at our compound, and if we don't start moving now, they're probably just going to crash us, especially with this new circle popping. So they say we will move one step further inside the circle, knowing that that's going to take a lot of pressure off of our shoulders, and then it's going to be a team like FaZe that takes the compound, or any other team that decides to stay on the edge that has to take that fight. So they might not get the kills, but they set themselves up in a position from where they can play to their advantage, which is not up close fights, but shooting teams at a distance. And that's what I like to see DA finally starting to do, because they used to be the team that put themselves into situations where they never played to their own advantage. So doing this split, they might not be able to do a lot from here, but they do what they're good at, which is avoid fights. And you can laugh about that, saying that, oh, but it's such a kill-heavy point system. Yes, and that's probably also the reason why they're not high up in the leaderboards. But if their strong suit is this, then at least try and do something with it, which they do. 7, try to crash in towards him. Ents, they can chill around for a little while longer. Normally, this is the type of game where Ents don't get any kills, but this compound actually has a lot of vision. And believe me, it's not just, I mean, Ents is not just sitting in the circle singing songs around a campfire and chilling. They have to, like 360 degrees, be aware all the time of their surroundings. And I think there's a reason. I think there's a reason that they're not playing any of this right now. They will rather give this area up to an opposing team, because they know that if a team pushes in here and takes these buildings, they probably won't push further over. Because if a team pushes in, like one team breaching a compound is normally the domino effect. One team goes in, ooh, chaos, we can embrace that. Then all the other teams start either pushing or try and engage on the backside too. So I think if a team makes it into the compound, then they'll be forced to just sit there and look out this way, hoping that they don't get backstepped and then potentially get sandwiched by a third team. So I think it's on purpose that that Ents play the northern side. Also, if you look up north, what can you play here? Nothing. There's this little stack of hay bales. On the southern side, at least, you have the road, you have the ridge lines, you have the downhill kind of plateau. There is something you can play, so they're feeling that the pressure is much more eminent from the north than it is from the southern side. So great setup, honestly, by Ents in realizing where the circles, where the people are playing from. I don't know if you're talking to me, FaZe, but if you are, I have to ask you a question. Thank you. And Ratio Edge, not all that they can do. Forced off on the side. In 47, I mean, they can't really go anywhere right now. They're sitting on this backside, and obviously with this circle shifting away from the compound, already before that, they couldn't do all too much from the spot that they were in. The only thing they can really do here is make sure with this circle popping that they are the only team on this side of the road. If they can at least claim this, which is very, very little, but it's something. If they can claim this, then that's what they can play from. And you can see that's why they all push out to take control on the left side of the circle. They have to make sure that nobody can cross over this way and nobody can take what they would potentially be able to gain on the other side of the road. Game Legion trying to cross over, and now that they've made sure there's no one here, with Crow Crowd forced to leave, then they can make their way over to the other side. Na'Vi playing in the open, not all they can do. They've kind of split in between Team Liquid Desperados from one not too amazing spot to another, trying to sit on the edge. ENCE still in the middle, but ENCE has to continuously hold this spot like on a lockdown for themselves, right? N47, well, they're on the southern side. All they can do is just frag. I mean, they're in a position where they probably know already we're not really going to get out of here too well. They try to get over to the side. Just frag as much as you can from where you are and slowly make your way forward. Get a chance to third party on the engagement in the center. Desperados push out, and now ENCE leave as well. This is where ENCE plays it smart, and we've seen FaZe in similar situations before too, where just because you get the circles thrown at you often doesn't mean that you won't be able to no, just because you get the circles thrown towards you doesn't mean that you win the game. That's what I'm trying to say. So them realizing, good, if we don't start pushing out now, like once this fight escalates, you can see that's exactly when they start running. If we don't start moving out now, then whichever teams wins this, because they don't know that 8C is over here at this point, whichever team wins this, they'll just take half the circle, and then we're going to be in a very difficult spot. So they're going to push around this side. 8C spots this, and I think he goes up this way instead. Yep, we see him trying to crouch back towards the compound. Simsi and Ultra still out in the open. 8C is sneaky snaking for his life. Mikaz is back in the compound. Desperados do go down, and now all of a sudden, this becomes a 2v2, and 8C makes things look scary, but in the end, he goes down to the blue. Game over, ENCE wins it in a position where we thought they probably wouldn't get a lot of kills, but they actually do manage to get 12. So a 22-point game to start off the day. Very, very, very good start of the day for ENCE. And that was game number 1. Now we'll go over to game number 2 in just a second. Where is it? There. Game number 2. I like the discussion that you're trying to bring into this, wherever you are, but I don't see it really. I mean, that's the funny thing. People always say there's no dumb questions and all that. You just have to answer differently. It's not that difficult, really. When people come in and act weird and toxic, the art of ignorance is a very good one to possess. Or ignoring, I guess you can say, not ignorance. The art of ignoring people. Anyway, plane is on the eastern side. Game number 2 is starting. All right. There is quite a few teams that that you could argue can't get to their spots. El Pozo, La Copraria, Monte Nuevo. I mean, it doesn't really matter for N47 because they'll just take anything on the south. And 7 as well. But 7 and, I mean, these two are kind of checked off because both 7 and Na'Vi, I cannot even talk right now. They have their alternative drop spots down here, so they're fine. FaZe, they've been looting on the southern side before, but normally when they're down here, they don't have, like, they don't normally have both 7 and Na'Vi down here as well. So these 3 teams are kind of not piled up, but at least somewhat in the same area. then you have Crow Crowd. They've been up in Tierra Bronca and Campo Militar before as well. So pretty straightforward area for them to jump into. We'll see now with the first circle popping, and we're going back into the same area. Back into the same area once again. You don't get why G2 one day is great and then the next day they don't play well. Well, I think G2 to me with the recent roster change, I don't know if the roster change has anything to do with it, but it's just a clear difference for me in how they played before as opposed to how they play now. G2 used to take much more control. G2 used to be a team that not scared the other teams away, but they would come in and say, we are here. If you want to come here, you better damn be ready to fight us. But now they're the team that is kind of getting pushed around by a lot of other teams. So they oftentimes find themselves in situations where they can't really do a lot and they lose players early because, well, they're literally just being punching bags from other team. Like other teams just push them around. And when you constantly have to adapt every single game to what other teams do around you, then it becomes extremely difficult. Not saying that they're a bad team by any means. It's just the amount of control they used to have in certain situations. It seems like they don't have any of that anymore, which I think is unfortunate. And it's also kind of interesting with the whole FaZe discussion, because I will agree that FaZe gets a lot of shifts in the late game, but you also have to kind of do the math and say, but they also get to the late game very often. And I think that's the difference, like a factor that most teams or most people will just say, oh my god, FaZe circle, they don't really think about the fact that they're there to get the circle. I mean, if you look over a statistic of how many times FaZe has gotten to circle 6 with 4 guys alive, as opposed to how many times they have been in circle 6, then I think if you add that up with other teams that maybe don't make it to the late game that often, the math might be the same. It's just because they always manage to make it all the way to that point that they have a bigger chance of getting the circles. The more games you are there, the bigger the chance. And then because we see it so many times, it kind of just gets in our head that, oh my god, FaZe got a circle again, type of thought. But I do agree. I mean, in the heat of the moment, they do get some logger circles every now and again. But I mean, every team can do that. That's PUBG for you. Open area in the middle, pretty straightforward. No, I don't think CSM will fall under. I don't think so. Reciprocity. I like that they go back to they go to this area again. I think that's a good move by them. Liquid couldn't get that far in. DA splitting 2-2 the way they're sitting here. Desperados, a 4-way split. Not something you see too often, and also rather greedy. But sitting in a 4-way split in this circle, that is, to me at least, something that is not very easy to do. And you can see Simsi is kind of getting scared off. Which makes sense. I mean, that's why you keep a 4-way split. You never have a 4-way split with the intent to fight people. You sit 4-way split so that you can say, if someone comes to contest it, we're just going to leave. Because we still have 3 other compounds we can play from. So he's going to leave. Reciprocity stays in. Ratio Edge 4 guys on the northern side. Knights, they run into an IP. And IP takes some casualties, or 1 casualty, I guess. And now the circle goes even further west. This circle is fun for 2 reasons to me. A, south is Los Leones. Can play it if you care, or if you're there. But it's not exactly the easiest place to play from in this circle. And in the center, it's open field with La Bendita next door. I mean, there is some very, 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 very tricky areas to play in this circle, and they're kind of all being forced upon us, because everything up here where it's not a compound, you can't really play. Then you have the La Bendita ridge line, and then you have this whole field where you can't really do a whole lot either, unless if you're up on that the dip and the shack type area up here, like along the crater. So it's 2 craters, crater, open field in the middle, and open field in the north, which is pretty much a stretch of this whole thing. So a lot of terrain is I mean, it's not that you can't play it in this case because there's compounds in multiple of them. It's just a lot of kind of death areas in the center, and we know that more and more teams like to go center later on, so that the teams that are on the edge, like the teams that are on the edge, they can move in because the teams that were kind of center before go even further center. But now there's not a lot to take in the actual center, so the teams that were on the edge before, well, they're forced to either take the fight or stay out there for even longer. TSM, La Bandita control. Knights, they're sitting up on the northwestern side, I guess you can say. It's still pretty center, but I mean, they have no one above them, which is pretty good info for them. You can see Snark and Reels, they're making sure that A, nobody's pushing around the back, and B, nobody's coming up from the top. Crow Crowd, they're going into that exact area, so you would assume to see Snark and Reels. Yep, shots already fired. Spotting them. New circle pops, and we are keeping the areas that we just drew up in play. So we're keeping all of this we just drew up in play, and now there's just that much less to play around. You see all these teams coming in from the south. If we go back and look, because it didn't hard shift north, but it's still a northern shift, and if we kind of cut it off in the middle, we have 5 teams on the northern side, and the other 11 are south. And for a team that wants to push into the north, well, you have a crater. You can't really just push over and through. I mean, technically, you probably can, but it's not exactly going to be easy. Then we have an open field, and then we have a crater. So all these 3 areas are practically, I mean, they're not impossible to cross by any means, but they are areas that, as a pro team in PUBG, you probably wouldn't want to cross. So if you're a southern team wanting to go north, it's practically not really possible. So all these teams are forced to kind of cram their way in on the southern side, except for Navi, who has the access to get around the side because they were holding the western side of that crater ridge line. Desperados try and push up. Reciprocity still in the same compound they started in. FaZe, they got torn apart by 7. I think it was 7 fighting them, right? They came down. Oh no, they went into Liquid. They went into Liquid in the compound. 8C had to jump off. He's not by himself. Liquid has, again, like fully controlled compound here in the middle. G2 trying to get over. Poker gets scared off. Like, no, I don't want a full 4-man team pushing over towards me. New circle pops. La Bandita. Spooky field. Surprised that this compound is open for as long as it is, but I think the TSM played it earlier. They only played it very early. Okay, so they moved down, and now this is open, but great read. Like, really good read by Knights to see that this is actually available. Because there is not, when you see this shift, there is not a whole lot you can play. Like, there really isn't. Not a whole lot you can play. So the fact that they actually spot that this is up and available, very, very impressively done by them. G2 caught on the wrong side. They got shifted away from Navi. Same thing for them. Crow Crowd, they're all caught off out there too. And there's not, I mean, as you can see, if you try to make your way in from this side of the circle, I mean, honestly, if you try to make your way in anywhere here, if this is where you want to get inside the circle, then what do you have to do? Compound. You have to take the fight to either one of them. You can't stop here and play from there. This little dip that we talked about before, it's not inside the circle, so you'd have to cross up, but then you're visible to Liquid. You can't really stop anywhere on this side of the circle before you hit one of the compounds, which is why, well, Navi were forced to just send it in, and G2 realized that's a bad side of the circle to play from, so we have to go south around. Game of Legion as well, can't really find anywhere to chill. Fortunately for them, Team Liquid has left the compounds. That's kind of useful that they run out. Now they realize they're getting pushed from behind. Yemty goes down. And the rest of Game of Legion have to leave. And now Crow Crowd comes around the back. I mean, all these guys, they're just scrambling for something. For some kind of cover. And there really isn't a whole lot. We have Ents chilling inside of La Bandita itself. Desperados on the eastern side. I mean, they've kind of been going up side by side with Reciprocity for a while. So they can just push up north. Take control up there. N47 on the south doing the same thing. But obviously from the other side, they will take out, is it, yeah, Game of Legion. They just got pinned. There were simply too many teams around them there. They get pinned in. They go up, play the ridge line. You want to have the vision in, but at the same time, you want to make sure your sights are clear. Because again, same as last game, they can play here. As long as they can make sure no one's coming there and no one's coming there, then they can chill on this side of the circle for a while. But now, multiple angles being shot from, try to engage 2 teams at the same time. Not going to be easy, and I think this is a point where they have to commit. Either A, you push north around, but you don't want to run on the inside of the... Like, you don't want to run around on the inside of the crater, because then these guys can see you. Like, you know there's a team inside, so they will be able to spot you. And if you want to go on the outside, of course, when you're 4 guys alive, you want to have space, which means that if you try to push north towards reciprocity, realistically, this is the amount of space you'll have. I cannot even draw anymore, but you know what I mean. Like, this is the amount of space you'll have. Whereas if you push the other way, there might be more teams, but at least you will have, I mean, quite a lot more space to push when you're 4 guys alive, and you don't want to be literally on top of each other, right? So N47 commit to going in this direction rather than the other. Still, we got La Bandita in play, and nobody really, I mean, teams, this is, La Bandita becomes that city where you just don't want to go there. I mean, if you can avoid it, don't commit to La Bandita. In 47 up on the top, still trying to hold the ridge lines, waiting for that next circle to shift, because if it doesn't include this, they're now in a position from where they can try and hold off here. And if they can take down these 2 teams, then they have even more space to rotate on. New circle pops. Exactly it. They're outside the compound, and this is what we talked about before, where these compounds, as good as it is to sit and have the cover, as dangerous does it become having to leave them, because they're run up the hill for both Knights and TSM. If N47 can position themselves in time, it's going to be extremely difficult, because N47 is not pressured by the blue the same way that these guys are. They have to push in, and we're already at circle 6 or circle 7, so you would have to make that push forward. Exact same thing for Desperados. Desperados has just been on their side of the circle, where, as you can see, I mean, they've kind of had this whole, if we just use La Bandita as a pie, they've kind of had their quarter of the pie to themselves for quite a while. Until now, they have to actually push inside the crater itself. Then 47 push over the top. They get the res onto 1. Vasco does go down. TSM tries to leave. Great hold by them. Down to just 2 players. So it cost them more than what they probably wanted it to, but at the same time, it's TSM. I mean, TSM can land some godlike shots, and they managed to do that. Their eyeball goes down, Page by himself. Desperados, 4 guys alive. Samty, liquid and sneaking to the top. That's it's an amazing skill that not a lot of teams can replicate the way that they can. They know that Iroh is there. Iroh finds himself 1. Has to push down in, gets tagged by Ultra, runs down, and he gets taken out. Now it's a 3-man Desperados against a 3-man Ends and Samty. And Samty in the middle. Desperados, well, Desperados have the hilltop. They need to, if any of you guys were watching the Korean League earlier today, Desperados right now are in a APK Prince situation where they have the high ground, they have the position on the other side of the compound, and they need to make sure no one's pushing them. So Tamil's job is to sit down here. Samty's job is to sit up here. Ultra's job is to sit up here and make sure nobody comes up the hill, because the dot is kind of around here, right? So they need to hold off extremely well on their side. And the more the circle pushes in, the more you can narrow your responsibility, like the angle you're supposed to hold. Samty goes down. Now it's a 3v3. Honestly, pretty. You can see they're all kind of tasked with the same job. All of them have the same job. Ultra and Mikas are holding flanks here. Squeaky and Tamil are holding flanks here. Ultra and Samty sitting in the middle, the ones looking forward. Samty goes down. That's costly. Tamil gets 1, so that's a trade 1 for 1. Tamil down. All of a sudden, 1v2. Ultra gets tagged. And he goes down. Good fight, honestly, for both teams, but Ents managed to pull through and win it, and that's 2 wins in a row. This is obviously not the kill-heavy win, because now this game they were sitting in La Bandita practically the entire game. Weren't they? La Bandita. Okay, so they come in circle 3. Okay, so it wasn't the whole game they were sitting there. They made the top rotation through all the teams where they lost. I believe it's Trifley. Yeah, they lose Trifley on the rotation in. But they couldn't really get kills. Everyone avoided, because everyone knows there's a team in La Bandita, and as we talked about both within 47 and Desperados, knowing that, you're simply going to avoid that area. So it only became, I think, a 4-point kill game for them. Yeah, 4 kills in that game. But still 14 points. That's what? That's 20. That's 36 points in 2 games. That is, that's the amount of points that some teams hope to get on a day, and they just got it in 2 out of 5 games. So very good start on Miramar for for ends. I think I said reciprocity. I didn't mean that, but you know what I meant. Game number 3. We're headed over to the third game of the day, Sanhok. And before we go there, let me just read through if you guys had any questions I oversaw. Sometimes when I get like vroom in the mode, then I tend to then I tend to tunnel vision a bit on it. You guys are talking to each other. Oh, I don't think I missed anything. And hello, Kari. On a place where no one would imagine it. Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the thing. That's what Liquid are good at doing. I mean, if everything goes wrong, then they don't lose that last player as well and get 0 points. Then that player might not get kills, but he will always get like 3 or 4 points on placements, and that's really gonna reward you, in a sense. Now let's see. It's game number 3. Hopping over to Sanhok. Desperados out early. That's funny. Desperados have been a little all over the place. First, they went down here on the first 2 weeks and contested Knights. Then they went Camp Bravo and kind of got it for free. And then I would think, well, I mean, then they're just going to go Camp Bravo. But now they're jumping out here. So Desperados, not really, seemingly not really sure where they want to go in all of this. But they do. I mean, I don't mind them going this island at all. The only thing I have with this, like jumping on this island, is if you're going to go land on this island, I would think that the main purpose of going there is to have control of the mountain. And since Bjorn lands there, and we saw that game where Gamer Legion won up on that mountain last week, to me at least, it kind of defeats the purpose to land here. I mean, of course, if there's nothing else available, it doesn't really matter. But then I would rather be on the big island where you have a bigger chance of the circle going. I think I saw statistics say that it was 62% of Sanhok games on a global scale in like pro games, 62% have gone to the big island. Obviously, there's so much more landmass there. I don't know if that applies to PEL, but I think the only purpose of landing on this island would be control. But of course, if you land here, you have some sort of an access point. I mean, you can take boats or you can drive over, so you can always play those islands. But getting from here over to this island can be a little trickier. Circle. Who's exactly there? Had they just gone Camp Bravo? But that's, of course, always easy to say afterwards. No fights early. Seems like G2 and DA, they have stopped their seemingly pointless engagements. DA gonna rotate upward, and 47 rotating into that too. Raise your edge and G2 now finding each other. Kind of. Not really wanting to fight just yet as I say that, though. Cold Mensa does go down. 60 is there for the rest. Face, they come crashing into Paradise. Heard a fight go on and they wanted the third party. But Ratio Edge is quick to disengage on that. Face finds G2. 80 gets knocked. The flush comes in too. Once again, Liquid pushing through. This time they're running into DA. A lot of fighting going on. We can't really see who is winning what, but it is going to be Liquid prevailing. And they survive with 3. Bisa goes down. And I don't know if Liquid, they pick their fights based on who they know is where. Because obviously, if you're Liquid and you want to fight early, you would rather fight against one of the teams that aren't the better fighting team. And they have been, I mean, if you think about it, they have been really good at taking engagements with DA and with 7. And some of these teams that don't excel in up close fighting, so it kind of makes sense when you think about how they engage teams. Were we able to stream the map stream? I don't think so. I saw that Break was doing it from TSM, but he's also part of TSM, and so I don't think I will be allowed to do that without asking. And also, it's only today and tomorrow left, and I'm not going to be home for any of those games, so I wouldn't get to stream it anyway. I hope that answered your question, Hornheim. New circle goes out east. Plenty of room up on the northeastern side, but of course, knowing that the water is here and they have to shift away, it's probably going to go, I mean, somewhere in here. I guess it could technically actually go up there too, but we'll see. Where did... Yeah. That's what I said. NIP holding the bridge, Desperados down. That's why I said that I didn't like the idea of landing down here. But again, I mean, I'm of course not not the one to decide where they should drop. We'll see the circles continue. TSM, they realize there's a huge engagement going on here. Can't really be asked to have to fight it. So they have to rotate all the way around. But they run straight into 7. And Gustav gets taken down, I believe. Yeah, I think it was Gustav. Mexi and Uber by themselves up on the western side. N47, they're sitting in the compound that Liquid won that game from yesterday. Trying to hold it in there. TSM crash. Okay. Considering how many places they could have stopped before that, it's interesting that they go for this spot. At least to me. Because once you're in there, it's one of those areas where, like, this is the valley thingy that goes around it. And if you're down here, like, you're not getting up that way. You're not getting out that way. Not getting up that way. So maybe crash, I don't know, something else instead rather than go there. I don't know. It's always, again, easy enough for us to sit in hindsight and look at it, but they wanted to get center, and it makes perfect sense because they know there's a big engagement going on here. They know there's going to be teams fighting up here, and if they can just stay alive and behind, they might not get a lot of kills, but at least they'll get probably, realistically, top 5 guaranteed, because them taking a center, you can see with the circle being the size that it is, unless if it hard shifted out east somewhere, Bahan would be probably in no matter what. Reciprocity doing the exact same thing. I don't know what it is with Bahan and teams wanting to go there, but TSM managed to stay alive. Now Ens comes over the top, probably sees Roy down there. I mean, at least they should know that their team's down in the area. Circle. Oh my lord, that's a lucky shift for N47. And this is what I'm talking about. All teams can get lucky with the circles. Face north, Gamer Legion, 2 guys alive still, and N47 trying to stay put down at that southern compound. Vasco making sure that no one is sneaky peekingly making their way in from the west side. Snark trying to go through, not gonna happen. And look at the way that Liquid plays this game too. Look at how they're constantly moving around. Never just a stale target. They're always maneuvering around, trying to make sure, like, they play around the compound rather than in the compound, where other teams like DA maybe, they would maybe lock themselves more down in that compound and hold the close angles. Liquid has this compound so that they know in case this circle goes here, we can always disengage if it gets too hot. If there's too much fighting here, they can always run back. But there's no reason to sitting in the compound if you have a chance to take more control. So they play around the compound rather than inside the compound. And they do that so that if they get in a situation where they don't want to fight anymore, they can always run back. Always have a backup plan. And that's what they do by not being inside the buildings, but kind of holding the perimeter around it. Mikas denying the points. Don't want to give those away. Crow Crowd forcing Liquid over towards N47, and they end up getting butchered. T-Bone by himself is going to be tricky, of course. We'll see. So FaZe, despite losing 2 players early, get to sit quietly and chill. This is what I'm talking about, right? Where people say, oh, FaZe hardships, blah, blah, blah. Yes, they do get circles. Everyone does. I mean, look at the size of this circle. It had to go somewhere. I mean, had it gone anywhere else, yes, maybe FaZe wouldn't have won. But that's what I'm saying. They are here. They are alive. It could have been any other team, but they're the ones that managed to survive for this long. And they didn't have it easy. FaZe, they were fighting all the time up here. But they were the team that made it to that point. So can't really be upset about it. Even though I know some teams try to, or some people try to complain about it. T-Bone on his own, trying to make his way in. Mexi finds them, a little help from Gamer Legion. T-Bone dies to blue. And he goes down. FaZe wins it with only 5 kills. So 4 of their 5 kills came like in that last circle shift. I think, right? Didn't they only have 1 kill up until that point? Here? FaZe? Yeah, only 1. Mexi had that 1 kill from earlier. But Uba and Mexi wins it. Great game for them. Also really good game for N47. 8 kills and a 3rd place. That's 14 points. Good game, good game. And that leads us over to Erangel. Erangel. Zoom. I'm just going to take a sip of water. Game number 4. And again, if you guys have questions along all of this, do feel free to ask. Now, let's see. Game number 4 of the second day of the final week. We headed over to Erangel. And I think, I mean, we talked about it before. I honestly think that any plane that comes in around Georgia Pole, maybe like anything that goes in between this and this, whichever the slant is going to be probably the best plane for PEL. Because you have 2 northern teams. You have one team that likes to go south, but they can go there as well. And everyone can pretty much go where they want to with this shift. Navi, they can just drive underneath. Not really the biggest issue for them. And everyone's happy. That's how it is. Circle, Western, we've seen these before. They always tend to go down here. So that's, of course, going to be in the back of the heads of the players. That a lot of games have ended down here. Everyone's quietly looting up. No early crazy rotations. Also, I think it's fun. I don't really know what's caused it. I'd love to talk to Scoom about it. But there was a period where Scoom would land and take the hard spawn in ruins. And then go down and take control of the highway. This direction here. He would land down here. But ever since Merge started showing presence, instead of landing Watertown but going more this way, Scoom has backed off towards his teammates. So there's a little bit of a like elbow pushing going on between DA and Reciprocity over in this area. So Dovnik, they move in. 7 has played this area so many times before, just this area in general, in this circle. Gamer Legion, they want to get the compound. Makes perfect sense. Liquid splits out, they want to take more control. Reciprocity, they're crashing in towards the forest. NIP, they set VAD up really early. The VAD is pushing straight through. Okay, so Crow Crowd has like a 4-way split. And VAD just sends it straight through the middle. I think NIP, they always play this watchtower, but seems like Mise is there to hold it, and all of a sudden VAD is kind of isolated from his teammates. Reciprocity, they run into 7. 7 managed to hold off there. Good game by, or good start to the game, I guess you can say, by them. And Liquid, 3-way splitting. I like this this positioning as well. Makes good sense. They know that the team that normally contests this would be either Navi or 7, and given that Navi isn't around, then and 7 is fighting Reciprocity up here, that should be open. Teams can push underneath and take the spot. This rotation from TSM has me a little interested, because I know they normally do these rotations. If we look at TSM normally do this because there was a period where where G2 would try and hold them when they were driving out this way. They would set up ambushes and stuff. So they have started rotating over military. But now that they've done that so many times in these Western circles, I'm starting to think that some teams should prepare for it. And as you can see, the exact same team that they were having issues with over here have done the exact same rotation to the other side. They know it's going to happen. TSM has done this so many times, and that's why I'm talking about. We had the discussion the other day about you having to change your plan before it goes wrong. Like, you cannot risk, I mean, yes, they only lose 1 player here, and it's not the biggest deal, but it's still, I mean, there's been something in there, like their spider sense had been tinkling and said, oh, there's a chance that G2 is going to do this, because having looked at the replay, they never really stick around here anymore. Now they might be coming over here. Then they would have made this play to begin with, had they. Yeah, I guess it's mainly a gut feeling thing. But nonetheless, G2 holding off TSM, so they will have to 1 guy short, rotate back either the way they came from, or just wait and then go over later. And now that first circle comes, I think a lot of teams are expecting it to go down here just based on what we normally see, but it doesn't. You're going on to the up to the other field, at least right now. It could still go back, but I doubt that's gonna happen. So we're going up towards Chopsticks and the area up here. N47 sending it full speed forward. Don't want to have to take any aggressive fights. They're jumping 2 guys into the area. TSM, they've been driving in circles for a while. Now they once again crash into G2. So I think G2 is trying to make a statement here that, guys, just don't go where we are. I mean, it's not gonna work. And clearly TSM losing 2 players didn't really work out for them. NIP are sitting 3-way split, not because they want to, but because Vard has been isolated from his teammates for so long. Now he might actually be able to make it over towards NBS. It's a little funny how they've been apart for so long. He gets down 2 knocks, gets 2 flushes as well. Important kills for Vard to pick up. Ends they push in towards NBS. He's by himself. Miracle has to come over to help. Gaxi comes over to help as well. And I think that's a lost cause. Yes, it is. And not only do they lose the compound by trying to go, and not only do they lose their teammate by trying to go over and help, they also lose the compound to FaZe because they are quick to take it. So unfortunate situation for NIP. Vard is still alive. He got 2 kills early. He kind of has to just chill by himself. Circle. Oof. This field is arguably one of the worst fields in the game. This entire area, with the exception of this compound, with this entire area, as long as this hill, we'll draw it up in green so it's easier to see. This hill, this compound, and this hill, as long as these 3 hills are in, you cannot really play anything out in the open. Unless if you park your cars and prone down behind them type place. So it's very difficult for anybody to really do anything, because what do we have available? 1 compound there, technically a compound down here. There's probably space for another team up here, and that's about it. So either you have to crash a fight, like crash a compound and take a fight to them, or do something else, because we have 2 teams, 3 teams and a half. They don't have to move anywhere. 4.5, 5.5 teams having to make their way inside the circle somehow, and that is not at all going to be easy. N47, they want to push over the top, doesn't work. FaZe are waiting for them. Then they run in towards Driftley. He's going to be by himself. G2 try to crash forward, get something to play from, but there really isn't anything, so they go down. That's what I'm saying. Anything in here is just suicidal, to be honest. Game of Legion, they have a decent spot out on the western side, but unfortunately that spot is no more. And now with yellows out, you can kind of try. There's like a ruck down here you can play, but at the same time, there's so many people positioned only focusing on that right now that it's just not gonna happen. 7 try to do the same thing. Game of Legion realized they're beat on it. Now they do the same thing. Ratio Edge try to do the exact same thing as well, and they all go down. So Game of Legion, they will rack up a lot of kills this game, I would assume. No, okay, they only have 5. A lot of the kills have been stolen by Navi then. Yep, 6 kills for Navi. And then now they have Simsi up close to potentially have to deal with. New circle goes north. Crow Crowd gets it up towards them. That's of course fortunate. We'll see what they can do with what they have. Game of Legion pushing around. They're going to go down to 1 player. As I said, as long as this hillside is in, there's literally nothing you can do with a downhill into the field position. You're going to be so exposed to everyone. They end up going down. Obviously, I would assume Crow Crowd players are jumping around on the roofs to try and get extra info as well. It's not really making it any easier for teams that are proning around in the fields. FaZe, 3 guys alive. Make that 2 alive. Try to make their way in. Crow Crowd from the north. Wipe them out. And now Navi and Wanted all by themselves. What can you do here, guys? What can you do here? Field, 4v1. Good luck. Not gonna happen. Knights, though, that's an important second place. I mean, they're trying to not get relegated, right? Was this the one where James owned 3 before dying? Right. James. No, it wasn't. He died. So that's probably the next one. But nonetheless, interesting game number 4. And now we're going to go into the final game of the day. I believe it went somewhere south, but we'll see in just a moment. Game number 5. Southern Plain. We've seen those before. FaZe out. I mean, if you look at the plane path, they probably could have jumped up here, to be honest. This time around, it's DA who go here. Ratio Edge will go towards military, but it's kind of interesting how Desperados have managed to kick out Ratio Edge from the base itself, and now they're jumping into a phase. Like normally, when they get forced out, They don't have face here, but now they have face there, and they're all kind of landing on top of each other. Down there, N47, they're landing on the west side. Navi in their spot, 7 in their spot. And everyone else is kind of just going where they normally go. And this circle is this circle is a little interesting. A little interesting. Does it go military? Does it not? It's pretty much nah, it's not really. There's more landmass obviously on the northern side, but as far as where the circle can go, I think it's, if not a 50-50, then a then something close to it. What did Fuss tweet about? I don't know. We'll slow it down a little bit. I don't know if teams are gonna hard commit to military the same way they sometimes do. You can see Liquid would normally push across had it been like a guaranteed military circle, right? But they don't. Teams are still looting and they're playing the forest rather than crossing. Game of Legion, they know that if we get control down by the water, because that's what people want to do right now. If you don't want to cross already, you just, it's like with the river. It's like with the river when we're having circles set up here, right? You want to be as close, so you like as close as possible, so you can cross whenever you have to. It's the same thing that happens down here. If Game of Legion can set up shop in these two, then they might have a chance to push over. Ratio Edge, they want to play from inside the base. They want to be up by the water so they can cross when they have to. Navi, close to the water. 7, close to the water. Liquid, be up here as well. N47, stay down here, keep your boats safe so that if it shifts over, you have an access point. Like, N47 at this point are probably the least contested team in any of this. Now let's see. Navi lose 1. 7 found him from above. TSM tried to push over with 1 player saying, remember, 7 aren't there because they jumped out up here. But had they just known? Boink. DA was there instead. Unfortunate, but nonetheless that's the case. But they do know that that face weren't there, so they can go out and take boats and make their way over. They're waiting. I mean, it looks like they're AFK, but right now they're waiting to see if they even have to go. Because there's no reason to take a boat and go here. So they go, oh wait, the circle went up here. Now we have to go back again and pick up our cars. So they're waiting, boat spawn, waiting to see where the circle will go so that they will be ready to rotate once they have to. New circle pops, and it's military. Iro down, Rory down, full speed across, up, there. They're gonna take the boats. M47 immediately get your boats. G2, get your boats. Reciprocity thought they were fast at going down there. Like, they were sitting up here, but as soon as the circle pops, G2 knows, if we don't get the hell out of here right now, there's no way we're crossing. So they hurried over, got us across as fast as they could, managing to stay alive. Liquid trying to do the same thing, pretty much on top of all the other teams. I think this is maybe a little too much of a, not YOLO play, but I think the situation is that they know for a fact that up on the northern side, if they don't get across quickly, like if they don't get over here while there's no one, which there isn't right now, they're going to be stuck up here. There's going to be so many teams, the entire bridge is going to be camped to pieces, and it's just going to be impossible. But they do send it anyway, but at this point already, I mean, obviously, Desperados, Navio just made it over, Ratio Edge as well. They all know that there's going to be so many teams coming this way, so that's where the focus point is right now. So Liquid lose 1, lose 2, lose 3. James is by himself, manages to drive underneath. N47, they get a chance of, what can you say? They get a chance of, yeah, they took the boat from Ferry Pier, exactly. They took Navi's boats. They get a chance of making up for the military game that they probably could have won from down there had they managed to take down Crow Crowd yesterday. Oh, sorry for yawning. DA on the east side try to hold off with Knights pushing through. 7, they're chilling in the compound. They've normally played this one previously, so they're not the biggest deal there. DA crossing over up towards the hilltop. They've played here plenty of times before as well. We've seen them do like full YOLO crashes, which, I mean, this is not really a full YOLO crash, but we've seen them really want to get this area before. This time around they get it without any consequences. Yeah, teams dies. Boink. They'll go in there. Knights caught out outside the circle. Ends and reciprocity caught outside the circle. Circle, of course, has to exclude water, so that'll go over to that side. Bro crowd trying to take an engagement with 7. Desperados, they're kind of in the open. It's not really that good a spot for them. I mean, it is a good spot, but it's so difficult to contain on both sides. Like, you have to really focus on one, and unfortunately, one gets spotted here, and DA try to push around to get into a better position, knowing that TSM are starting to push up towards them again. As we said, DA don't want to fight close. They want to get to that center spot and have other teams do their fighting for them, which is kind of what they can do here. Now, these two teams can fight each other. DA can sit in the middle and wait it out for a while. Mexi gets knocked. Uber comes up to pick him up. And 47, they manage to cross over. And they have now this, like, this side of the road. I think there's only, in this circle, there's only going to be room for 1 or 2 teams to be up here. 1 up here, 1 down here. So we will see a lot of fighting on this side. 7 as well trying to cross over will make their way up. N47 pushes down to an IP. I mean, they're playing right now. They're playing this as a Sanhok game. The whole move together, play together, push together, and that's a reason that N47 has had so much success on Sanhok, is because they're really good when it comes to up close fighting. They're active. They're going out. They're getting all those kills, and you can see moving around as a unit is exactly what they do here. Rory got taken down. Iro down as well. Tommel stays put. And 7 now control of the northern side. I think at this point 7 actually has quite a few kills. Yeah, they do. They have 6, 10, 12 kills already. And that's, of course, just all the kills on the northern side. I mean, they were just racking up kills. It wasn't really on the bridge that they got the majority of their kills. As you can see, at this point, they have 1 kill. I heard some people say that they got all their kills by holding the bridge. And that was not correct. They were actually holding the water more than the bridge. They were staying in the compound and just racking up anyone trying to cross. And then once they got to the other side of the bridge, that's when they were able to hold them off. Now we'll see. The thing is, they sit up here. Like, they sit here, and they know these guys can't just fully drive. It fools you a little, but you actually don't get off the bridge before you're over here. Like, you have the fence that goes along the bridge. So the bridge doesn't actually end before you're kind of over here. So what they can do is they can look up towards the guys that are up on the bridge, and they can say, oh, okay, we can see you. And they have to stay. Like, they have to stay behind the truck, behind the cover, in order to shoot at all these guys. But while they're hiding back there, they can then see them. Rochi, thank you so much for the host. They can then see them. So smart plays by 7 to sit in their respective position. As we said before, in 47, they'll be pushing on down to make sure to get the kills. On towards NIP. Navi has Poker still up and alive. He's going to stay put for a little while longer. In the meantime, we have a 4-man compound team, 4-man, and a 4-man. So 12 players currently residing in this compound. Or I guess you can kind of call it 2 compounds, but still, you know what I mean. And on the northern side, with teams pushing over the top, we saw Iro go down to Tummel just before. These guys have to do something. And I like the disengage from DA. They know there's no way in hell that we actually get to cross this road. It's not gonna happen. So DA being DA, they say, you know what, we can disengage on this one probably, because they've seen 7 fight up here, and they knew 7 was north. So if they wrap that way, knowing that TSM, again, use those other teams. If you don't like close fights, have other teams do the close fighting for you. They have just wounded their team. They got a knock onto Tommel, to Ultra. They saw Tommel leave, and now they can push around that way. And it's much better for them to cross here than it would be trying to cross into that compound, right? So they run over the top. Really good idea. Unfortunately, they're a little late to it, so the idea doesn't play out the way they would have wanted to. But the idea is really good. FaZe, again, this is once again situations where we say, oh my god, FaZe got a hard shift, Omega Lul, because they did. But they're also alive in this circle. So many other teams would probably have had an equal amount of circles swapped towards them. It's just because they always manage to get to this point that they actually get the circles. But yes, they do get a hard shift down in their corner. Because had it gone up the mountain, these two teams would probably have died fighting each other. Then 47, they're sitting up the hill. They know that these teams have to fight. So they say, if we have to deal, like we have to, before anyone comes pushing up, like you want to be the team that gets to third party your opponent. So if they can clear this and then look down before these two teams are done fighting, then they will be the ones to third party, right? Whereas if this fight ends and then they push up while these two teams are still fighting, then that's going to be a no for N47. So they push in, they clear them surprisingly fast, very effectively done as well. And Ratio Edge still at 0 kills, haven't really had a chance to shoot at anything. And now, because they managed to clear as good as they did, they can now split up and hold. Ratio Edge down to the blue, tries to push out the side. FaZe all by themselves. 60 pushes up on his own. 3v4, Uber gets down 1, Ivel gets down 1, and boom. N47 wins the military game. So a good chance for N47, I think, to make up for that one from yesterday. If you can go back and watch yesterday's analysis, where Crow Crowd was pushing over this way, and it seemed like they had the position under control, but somehow they let them cross, and then it all kind of went down. So good game for them. They managed to win. They managed to get 10 kills as well. So a solid performance for them to win this match. And I hope that if you watch on YouTube, you enjoyed the analysis, because that was the last game of the day, and there's going to be 2 more games or 2 more days before we get to figure out who will win PEL. Thanks for watching on YouTube. See you next time.